So tensions with Iran are escalating fast. President Trump now threatening to obliterate its power grid if Tehran does not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is firing back, warning it will target critical infrastructure throughout the region. Chief international correspondent Steve Harrigan is just across the border from Iran in the Armenian capital, Yerevan, with the latest. Steve.
John, an extremely tough-worded ultimatum from President Trump to Iran, and that ultimatum has a clock ticking, 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz completely for commercial traffic, or the U.S. would, in President Trump's words, obliterate power plants across Iran, potentially plunging the nation of 90 million people into complete darkness. Now, with the timing, that would be fewer than 30 hours remaining for Iran to take those steps. Iran, though, posturing defiance, no sign of taking any steps to open that. The reverse, saying they would close the straits entirely if President Trump follows through and begins attacking power plants in Iran. They said they would also attack U.S. assets in the region. Here's Iran's response.
If Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure is targeted by the enemy, all energy, information technology, and desalination infrastructure belonging to America and the regime in the region will be targeted.
As this back and forth takes place, Iran has managed to fire 2 long-range missiles at U.S. and U.K. military positions on the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Neither missile hit its target, but the range surprised many people, more than 2,000 miles striking from Tehran out into the Indian Ocean. John, back to you.
Chief international correspondent Steve Harrigan from Armenia. Steve, thanks. Israel is facing new attacks as Iran and Hezbollah continue to fire missiles. Israel is also hitting back, launching strikes into Lebanon as fighting flares on multiple fronts. These are the latest images from southern Lebanon, where an Israeli strike smashed a bridge on a main route. Officials say the goal is to cut off Hezbollah's movement in the south of that country. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin is live in Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest. Mike.
And, John, the tension is ramping up dramatically as we're about halfway to the expiration of the president's ultimatum to Iran about the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Iranian parliament speaker posted a response reading as follows. Immediately after that happens, meaning strikes on the grid, the critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and oil facilities throughout the region will be considered legitimate targets and destroyed in an irreversible manner. An Iranian military spokesman said private sector targets are fair game.
If U.S. threats regarding Iran's power plants are carried out, the following punitive measures will be implemented immediately. The Strait of Hormuz will be completely closed and will remain closed until our damaged power plants are restored. All power plants, as well as the energy and information and communications technology infrastructure of the Zionist regime, will be extensively targeted. All similar companies in the region that have American shareholders will be completely destroyed.
Now, President Trump spoke with Israel's Channel 13 tonight. He said we'll find out soon what will happen when that ultimatum expires. He says Iran will be totally decimated. He said they've been acting bad for 47 years, and they will soon get their comeuppance. His words. John, back to you.
All right, senior correspondent Mike Tobin from Tel Aviv. Thanks, Mike. So Iran's attempted strike on the Diego Garcia military base in the Indian Ocean is forcing the U.S. and its allies to reassess Tehran's threat. Those missiles traveled some 2,500 miles, expanding Iran's reach well beyond the Middle East and well beyond what the regime itself has previously claimed.
They have now the capacity to reach deep into Europe. They already have fired on a European country, Cyprus. They are putting everyone in their sights. What more proof do you need that this regime that threatens the entire world has to be stopped?
Retired Air Force Brigadier General and former F-15 pilot John Teichert joins me now. General Teichert, is this a game changer, this attack, this attempted attack on Diego Garcia?
John, I don't think it's a game changer, but I think it certainly does increase the perception and the reality that Iran has both capability and will to do widespread damage into half of Asia, half of Africa, and almost all of Europe. But I think it goes back to the imminent threat argument that we have seen now consistently from Iran, the ability and the willingness to target civilian facilities. And that means twice against unprovoked civilian targets in Israel in 2024. And for the last 3 weeks against their Gulf partners, they are an evil terrorist regime. And I think this just goes to further prove that they have capability and intent to do widespread damage to humanity.
America's ambassador to the UN, Michael Waltz, says this just shows that the Iranians have been lying about what their intentions are. Listen.
Iran has been marching towards an ICBM. They've hidden some of that development under a so-called space program. I don't think anybody expects to see any Iranian astronauts on the moon, but that's what they've been hiding their booster production in contravention of sanctions behind for some years. They have developed a reentry capability with these intermediate range missiles, and all you have to do is marry up the two with a nuclear warhead.
No doubt they had an awful lot of help from the North Koreans and from China in developing this weaponry, right?
No, I think you're right. And I think that we should not be surprised that Iran has been lying to the world for the last 4.5 decades, that they're the largest state sponsor of terrorism, that they've created an arc of instability throughout the Middle East, and they have grander designs to threaten humanity. And I think this is just another example of the proof that they are and always have been an imminent threat.
There is Karg Island, where an American company built most of Iran's major oil exporting facilities. The Iranians took it over after the Iranian Revolution. Senator Lindsey Graham is saying that the U.S. should take Karg Island back, and that would essentially shut off the cash flow to this regime. Listen.
They were 2 weeks away from having 90% enriched uranium to make 10 bombs. They've got missiles that go 4,000 kilometers. We're not going to live that way anymore. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Karg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil, control that island, let this regime die on a vine.
You know a lot about warfare. Would that accomplish what the senator says it would? Would taking Karg Island finish off the regime?
John, the way that you finish the regime, in part what Lindsey Graham said there, is to impose maximum costs on them with minimal risk to us. And whether that is destroying those power plants, as President Trump suggested recently, or taking Karg Island, or slowly starting to destroy Karg Island, I think all of those are options to give Iranian leadership a bit of enlightenment that they should start opening up oil flows before we completely strangle their entire economic lifeline with no hope for them to recover.
Retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General Teichert, thanks for your expertise.
Thank you, John.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.